What is up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is SlammerIV, and we're back with another Littlewargame replay. Today, I'm bringing you a match I played in the bottom right against VisixFan in the top left. In the red, opening up with a 1 Rax Raider against my 1 Den, or 1 Workshop expand, rather. And this is the map Richmond Park, which is actually a really nice mech map. You can see that the 3rd base and the 4th base are both pretty close and easy to get to. I'm gonna unfortunately lose my first cannon there, which is a little bit annoying and gonna force me to control some workers here. A little bit surprised he pulls his raider away. I think this is already pretty tough for the mech player to deal with. I'm probably gonna lose at least 1 worker here. There's 1 worker down already. Fortunately, our Gatling cannon is getting out pretty quickly here. Probably lose a 2nd worker. So already, a bit of a bad start for me. Could have controlled these a lot better. And already, we can see that 2 worker advantage already existing for our red Rax player here. Looks like he's only ended up with a 1 worker advantage, which should be pretty equal. Now, because of the damage these raiders have taken, it's going to be pretty tough for VisixFan to put any more pressure on, so we should be safe to continue with the expansion and everything working along nicely for us. Raiders are going to try to sneak in this way. I'm not sure if they can blink here. I guess they probably can. Sometimes they can't blink up ramps and sometimes they can. I think this might be a case where they can because there's this little bit of corner of light you can see there. So we'll just have to wait and see about that. In any event, my Gatlings should be well positioned to deal with that if he does so choose to blink them up. Looks like he's waiting for that 4th raider. You can see I'm trying to poke around to see where his raiders are, and I sort of guess that he's trying to pull them back. So he's going to send in the raiders immediately here, trying to get as much damage as possible from these 4 attacking units. A little bit of a worker pull there to quickly block those raiders out, and nice Gatling placement here is going to block out 1 of those raiders. Looks like we're going to lose a couple of Gatling guns here, but already 4 raiders sniped down for the loss of only, I think, 3 Gatling guns. So a pretty good trade in all for me as the mech player here. Won't have to worry so much about future raider backstabs, because losing that many raiders, it's unlikely that the Rax player will want to rebuild them unless he's going to go in for some really heavy Rax play. And it also allows to take a pretty fast 3rd base off the back of this, because that threat kind of that raider attack is gone. Can just continue macroing up. We're only off of 1 workshop here, but already getting a pretty fast 3rd base. It's going to be significantly faster than the Rax player's build. Even though it looks like I missed a little bit of worker queuing because I ended up a little bit behind on the worker counts. That just is slightly superior macro play from our red player. Probably as a result of cutting workers to get the castle out and to defend more cleanly. But in any event, this is a pretty equal game economy-wise, which I think is pretty good for mech at this stage in the game. To have this solid of a position as far as economy-wise, I think is quite good for the mech player. And in general, yeah, it feels pretty good. And I was definitely pretty comfortable in this position. Now, really, the goals for the mech player are going to be getting drops out and just trying to continually secure the position. Need to start adding on more... certainly need to start adding on more mech units and workshops specifically. You'll notice that I throw down a lot of workshops towards the 3rd base. That's because the SimCity at the main base is pretty awkward. I think you maybe can put a workshop here, but in general, fitting more than 2 workshops up here is going to be pretty awkward, because you don't want to have annoying pathing and blocking between catapults and Gatling guns, because all those units are very they tend to be very chunky. So I was going to queue up a drop here, but I decided to bring it back to make sure we could defend against the force of archers. This is about as early as he could possibly move out, so you can see how safe that taking out those raiders made me that it was really impossible for him to take much damage here. And really there's not a whole lot for him to do here. He can just kind of poke away with his archers, but against this force of mech units, there's really no way for him to push in. And it's going to allow me just to continue to macro out and keep throwing down expansions. On the VisixFan side of the map, we have our armory going down, so he's going to be getting the archer range. Still operating off of 2 racks, adding a 3rd racks here, and continuing to macro out workers. He's up to 33, so he's really getting a nice worker economy. Whereas I've kind of been asleep at the wheel a little bit on the worker production, have fallen behind a little bit. So this is a really good example of what you need to be looking out for when you're playing this type of micro game. Don't let that worker production slip so quickly. I think in my case, possibly I'm cutting because I don't expect to get a 4th base as quickly. But I think that's probably a weakness in my play that I'm working on getting better at, is definitely need to be adding that 4th base on faster and adding on that worker count much quicker. But in my case, probably don't need too many more workers, just because I'm already at pretty solid saturation. I mean, definitely could add another 6 workers on this base. Yeah, so definitely little things that you can look out for to improve on in this match. That's funny, I never noticed there's a neutral snake charmer building on top. This is a pretty sweet little map. I think it feels really good for mech, just because of the way that you can guard such a narrow front and secure a 4th base, you know, with such a narrow defensive front. Feels really good for the mech player. Visix is trying to just keep some good vision with his archers. As you can see up the top right, I've been trying to get some drops off, but it does get sniped down with looks like very minimal damage. Fortunately, this is at a stage in the game where really I can start to afford to lose drops. This base is actually very awkward to drop, and I feel like Visix missed a bit of an opportunity. He places his tower way in the back left. I feel like a tower here will actually make it really hard to drop, because if you have a tower like placed here, you have to run into the tower to drop from this angle. So you have to basically come from this bottom angle to get any shots off, and from there you can just have your rally of archers, you know, in this position to really easily deal and defend this base. As he has it, there's actually room for me to drop my catapults here out of range of the tower and still in range of sniping that worker line down. So that's a little SimCity note that I think you're going to see come back haunt VisixFan a little bit later in this game, as I start to queue out some dropships. Oh, sorry, I totally missed the action here. Looks like I had to ditch my catapults here. And unfortunately, I really should be shooting here. I'm just not watching. Looks like I do get 1 shot off, which brings some units damaged, which hopefully will become important later on. But I'm basically just trying to macro behind this kind of wall. I'm trying to place as many cattle traps as possible around this area, rally all my workshops there as I just macro up upgrades. You can notice that I'm adding on plenty of workshops. I would say as a solid mech economy, you want on the order of 6, possibly even more. But I think 5 I find to be maybe not quite enough to produce, because your mech units, while they are expensive, they do take a little while to build. So you really want to have that fast reinforcement. I'm also really leaving myself supply blocked, which unfortunately takes down my production quite significantly. So here VisixFan is trying to use this position up top to pressure. You can see the caltrops coming into play here, slowing some of his archers down. But, oh, some of my own rocks now sharding me. But really it's tough for him to engage on such a narrow angle with this many catapults sniping from behind. I'm just going to keep an eye on my drops. I have 1 drop on that side coming in now. And I feel like as mech, drops always should be out on the map. There's really no reason to not have drops. Constantly putting some damage down and doing some work. You hear I get like 1 worker there, and then I just send it away. And really all I took was some damage on one of my catapults, and that's not really a problem. So now VisixFan is really trying to put some pressure on, and this is going to be a pretty large force of Rax units, which unfortunately I'm still shooting the ground over here, so I think I was microing my drops, which is why I had a bit of a poor reaction with my mech units. So all these catapults are going to get focused down by the archers, but not for free. A couple of these rocks are going to put some pretty huge shots down. Looks like tons of archers getting sniped down. And I'm just going to try to regroup my forces back here. This is where the amount of production I have really comes into play. I'm able to reproduce a lot of these units. And in the meantime, my catapults are doing tremendous damage to his worker lines in the background. Little misrallied units here are probably going to cause me to take some heavy damage at my fourth, but his entire fourth has been taken out as far as mining goes. Looks like, unfortunately, this catapult does get taken out, which is a bummer, as a couple soldiers are going to push into my base. So the Rax player is now really causing some heavy pressure to come down. These workers are forced to run, and meanwhile, some soldiers with +1 attack are going to be running down to damage my third base. In the meantime, this base is completely safe, and this dropship doesn't have enough HP to poke again there. But I am able to drop back here, which does significant damage. Meanwhile, my fourth is going to die, and these soldiers have done significant damage, probably on the order of 7 to 8 workers killed by this small soldier run-by. So really strong play from VisixFan there. Fortunately, it looks like my catapult army has built up again, and eventually these archers are going to have to get chased down and killed by these catapults. Yeah, meanwhile, VisixFan has been able to deal and clean up with this hardcore catapult drops. When you look at the macro, though, it's actually not terrible for my chances here, because I'm actually at only 32, whereas he only has 34. So while both of us are a little low for a 4-base economy, in the end, the game ends up being fairly equal, with both players roughly hovering at about 90 supply here. And now VisixFan is going to keep macroing out. Notice that his upgrades have kind of halted. He's at +2, whereas my units are at +2, +1, and I have another armor coming down. Really need to get these workers working, and need to secure that fourth base as soon as possible. Having the fourth base secure gives VisixFan a nice advantage, and if he can continue to pressure here and continue to deny this, he would be in a very strong winning position, which is why I'm trying to cattle chop up this position as well, and down here, and just arrange my catapults to make it as difficult as possible for him to attack in. I'm also going to send some drops to counterattack, and hopefully do some damage to his mineral lines. So at this point, oh, look at that, cattle chops giving free shots to my units. These Gatling guns are getting a little too far forward. Oh, and now some huge shots coming down on his mineral line here. Tons of workers are getting sniped down with these upgraded catapults. And his third base is also getting crushed. So while he was posturing with his army, he lost half his economy. He was at almost 30 workers. He's down to 15. So this is where you have to be persistent with those catapults. You can see that some of my earlier drops didn't do a ton of damage, but with persistence, I was able, and the fact that he didn't really secure this position right here, really a tower here would be so strong, because it forced me to start drop units up here or up here. So the fact that I'm able to now secure this position here is really incredibly huge and important. And now it's just a matter of he really needs to get something done with this force. And he is facing a 2 upgrade disadvantage now, because my units do have that +2 armor as well as the +2 attack. I'm trying to kite back with my catapults as much as possible, and use my cattle chops on this side to kind of avoid his main forces. And that is going to be GG, as he just does not have enough units to push through this defensive location. Yeah, and that calls the game. I think this is a really fairly good picture of how to play Mech on Richmond Park. Definitely defending this central location is essential, and I think VisixFan really lost the macro battle, as once my catapults did that significant amount of damage, he really didn't have anything to fall back to once his initial push was held. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video. I hope you learned something about Mech versus Rax gameplay, and if you did, hit the like button, subscribe, and I will see you next time.